Hi guys, Matty B here. Thanks for tuning in. This video is going to be the first of a series of videos where I talk about another subject that I'm passionate about, which is mental health and well-being. Now, whilst I am mental health first aid trained, I'm not an expert. I'm not professionally trained in therapy or counselling or anything. So if you are struggling with mental health, please reach out to a professional, whether that's your GP, a therapist, counsellor, or a charitable organisation, and reach out to family and friends for support. As someone who's suffered from mental health issues, I know how debilitating and hopeless it can feel to have a mental health illness or disorder. If we start by looking at what is mental health, according to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. As I'm sure you're aware, there is a mental health epidemic fast approaching. In fact, it may be here already, and it's only going to get worse, unfortunately. I'm going to go through some statistics to give this some context. Each year, 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem. 1 in 6 people report experiencing a common mental health problem, like anxiety and depression, in any given week. 8 in 100 people will suffer from depression and generalized anxiety. Generalized anxiety disorder, 6 in 100 people. Post-traumatic stress disorder, 4 in 100 people. Phobias, 2 in 100 people. Obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, 1 in 100 people. 1 in 6 people have a mental disability or special educational needs. 1 in 50 people have bipolar. Panic disorder, fewer than 1 in 100 people. 1 in 14 people will self-harm. 1 in 5 people have suicidal thoughts. Women are more likely to have suicidal thoughts than men, and make more suicide attempts than men. But men are 3 times more likely to actually take their own life than women are. 1 in 15 people will attempt suicide, and 80% of suicides are male. These statistics, especially the suicide statistics, are affected by the stigma that surrounds mental health. Thankfully, the stigma is reducing, but we've still got a long way to go, and we're still a long way off people seeking help for issues instead of isolating themselves, keeping themselves to themselves because they're too ashamed to ask for help because of how they're expected to look, sound and behave according to their stereotype. There's a brilliant video which shows this stigma around mental health, called "If Physical Health Problems Were Treated Like Mental Health Problems." I'll put the link to this video in the description so you can check it out. In my next video, I'll be discussing in more detail what's causing this mental health epidemic, but for the rest of this video, I'm going to share with you my story of my mental health issues, where they came from, and how they've affected me. A few years ago, I read a brilliant book called The Road Less Travelled, and the basic message from this book is that all mental health problems, pretty much all of them, come from trauma that we experience in our lives, especially childhood trauma, and this makes total sense when we go through these examples that I'm going to give you. When I was in my early teens, my mum was volunteering for MenCap, which is a charity in the UK supporting people and their families, for people who have got special needs. Like me, you'll know if you watched my introductory video that I've got autism. And whilst volunteering there, she met a couple who also volunteered there called Bev and John, and there was an arrangement set up between them where Bev and John would look after me. I'd go to their house on the weekends, have some fun with them, to give my parents a break at the weekend, because when I was growing up, especially early teens, my parents said I was quite intense, as a lot of people with autism are, and very high maintenance, and it was quite exhausting to look after me, they said, so they wanted to have a break. Makes total sense now when I look back on it and when I discuss this with them. But at the time, unconsciously, didn't really notice this at the time, but unconsciously, my reaction to it was, oh, right, my parents are sending me away. They don't love me anymore. I felt neglected. Growing up, I had a best friend. His name was Daniel. He also has autism, so we could really relate to each other, really supportive of each other. We were always there for each other, always hanging out in school and outside of school. The other children in school used to joke that the two of us were gay because we hung out so much. In our early 20s, me and Daniel went for a holiday together to Butlins in Minehead in the southwest of England. And while we were there, I learned a lot of truths about Daniel, how he looks after himself, what he does in the evenings, how he sleeps at night, how he treats other people, and his views on things like money. Because on the last day of this trip, I talked about the subject of paying for the holiday, because when we went, we agreed that I would pay for both of us, and then after the trip, Daniel would pay back his half. But on the last day, when I brought this up with him, he got very defensive, almost like he was saying, no, I'm not going to pay my half. And we got into a big argument. Didn't speak to each other on the way back home. Gave each other the silent treatment. My mum and his mum both said to him, gave him an ultimatum that you need to pay back your half. Eventually he did pay back his half, came over to my house. I was in work when he came over, so I didn't see him. He gave my mum his half of the holiday to give to me. And since that holiday, I've never seen Daniel since, and I've as you can probably imagine, and you might be able to see and hear from how I'm holding myself here, I was very upset by what had happened on the trip, and that he appeared to put his money before our friendship, and was almost like he was using me to get a free trip rather than being honest, paying his half and enjoying the trip together with me. After that, I built up walls around me because, as you can imagine, I didn't trust many people at this point, because if you can't trust your best friend, who can you trust? So I was very defensive, built barriers around myself, didn't let other people in, isolated myself, which made me feel depressed. Thankfully, coming to now, today, I'm a lot more trusting of people. I've got people inside and outside of work that I'm proud to call my friends. So I'm glad I've been able to build that trust back up with people and stop isolating myself. And when I was growing up with my autism, after I got diagnosed, it was agreed that going to a mainstream school wouldn't have been a good fit for me. I wouldn't have been able to cope. So the council paid for my education in a private school where the class sizes were a lot smaller, so it was a lot more comfortable for me. And my travel to and from the school was paid for by the council as well, which was great. But looking back, I can see that having all that given to me because of my autism built up a feeling inside me of imposter syndrome, which you may have heard of. It's not an official condition, it's not officially recognised in medicine, but it's estimated that 70% of people will have imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. And for me, it shows as me feeling that if I get success in my life, if I get given something, if I get a gift, if I get some sort of success, if I get a promotion, whatever it may be, if I get something good happen to me, it's because of my autism and because I'm entitled to it because of my disability, rather than because of my hard work and effort, which has been really detrimental to my well-being, because all the good stuff that's happened to me, especially in work where I got promoted on a secondment into positions which I really enjoyed, and having loads of benefits, being people having a really high opinion of me in work, and people saying I'm really good at my job. But deep down inside, I could never shake off the thought that the only reason I'm here is because of my autism, and because people want to make exceptions for me because of my condition, not because of how far I've come and because of how I handle myself. And there was always a thought in the back of my mind that eventually the people in charge would find out they made a mistake by hiring me, and would call me in for a meeting and say, look, the game's up, we know who you really are, we know you shouldn't really be here, we're going to have to let you go. And this kind of happened not in my head anyway, it didn't actually happen, it just felt like it did in my head, when I was called into a meeting about 2 years ago by my manager and someone supporting him, to look at how I was handling my calls, and that I maybe wasn't doing as much for the customers as I could be. And while I was there in the meeting, it felt like I was being judged like I was being interrogated, and felt like I thought that they knew that I was just pretending, like I was pretending to be someone else, and that they would say, look, maybe this isn't the best place for you. And in the meeting, I actually broke down in tears and told my manager, look, I'm sure this isn't what you're doing, but it feels like I'm under investigation here. Feels like you're having a go at me. Feels like you're telling me I'm not good enough. And fair dues to the manager, he was very empathetic. He's very tuned in on things like mental health. So couldn't have been anyone better to open up to be honest. And he says, look, Matt, that's not why you're here. We just want to understand what barriers are in the way of you maybe helping the customers as much as you could be. If there's something else going on, let's have a chat. We're in private here, just you and me in this room here, and this other guy Chris here who you're good friends with. Nothing goes outside this room. Why don't you talk to us? What's going on? I told him about everything, and they recommended that I reach out to a therapist through the private healthcare that we get at my employer, which I did. Got some counselling, which was really helpful, really helped with things like the cognitive behavioural therapy. So when thoughts come up, like the ones I've mentioned, I can question them and say, right, has anyone told you that? Where's the proof that this is correct? And to keep questioning myself, to look at it more logically and think about it like if your best friend told you that that was how they were feeling, how would you speak to them? If you're struggling with your mental health and well-being, or you think you could be one of those statistics, there are free services, non-profit charitable organisations that you can reach out to. So there's Mind, who you can contact on 0208 215 2243. Samaritans, you can contact them for free on 116 123. There's also a website called Young Minds, which gives amazing advice to young people, teenagers, children, and young adults on what mental health is, how to know if you've got a problem, and how to reach out for help. I'll put the links for all the major charities in the description so you can check them out and get the support you require. Asking for help is the hardest part because you may feel embarrassed or ashamed of your situation or your condition or illness. But please don't, there's no need to feel that way. These charitable organisations give free, impartial, non-judgmental support. Their job is to listen to what you have to say, empathise with your situation, and give practical advice and support on what you can do to look after your well-being. A lot of the work does have to be done by yourself, as my GP said to me when I went for support to him, and although it can be a bit, can sound a bit brutal when they say that, it's absolutely true. I'm glad my GP said that to me, because it made me feel empowered to do what was needed myself to look after my well-being, and in future videos I'm going to talk you through and show you what I do to look after my well-being on a daily basis, because I don't want you to fall into the trap either, like I did, of taking all the action, looking after your well-being, and then a few months later, you think, oh, brilliant, I'm back to where I was now. Well-being couldn't be better. I'm fixed now. I can go back to what I was doing before. It's not the case, unfortunately. It's always a work in progress. You need to keep doing what you're doing if it's working. And if it's not working, change it up. Do something different. I really hope this video has helped to show how important mental health and well-being is, how big the problem could be if we don't take action and let this epidemic keep getting bigger. And I hope I've given you the information, the courage and the bravery to ask for help and to take action to improve your mental health and well-being. It's okay to not be okay. It's not a weakness if you're struggling with anything. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be smiling all the time. You don't have to be happy all the time. No need to be strong and masculine and stoic if you're a man. No need to be caring and smiling and chatty all the time if you're a woman. It's okay to not be those things. Please don't suffer in silence. Reach out to someone like I did. All of you stay safe, stay well, stay healthy, and I'll catch you on the next video.